Hello, Internet. I'm Jackie Fox, and in this series, I want to expand upon talking about alienation in modern society and how to restore your fulfillment and pride within an alienating system. I've already touched on a few types of alienation in my Disabled Comrades video, so check that out if you're interested in learning a little bit more about common types of alienation in capitalist society. But there are also additional types of alienation and ways that we can be alienated from what makes us us. From makes us what I guess you could say is like spiritually human. Thus, alienation is a disconnection from something that makes us feel human, resulting in a world and a body that feels alien to the concepts of humanity, effectively. This dehumanizes us over time in order to make us a more subservient working class. To briefly recap on the two types of alienation that I talked about in the previous video, the first is alienation at work, and this alienation happens a number of ways. The one that gets referred to the most often is that you are alienated from your labor value in that you are not paid the full amount of the value that your labor adds to a product. You are simply paid enough of it that you will keep coming back to make more and more. The rest of that surplus labor value is translated into profits for the ownership class. It's important to note here that in this production model, this is the only source of profit for the ownership class. It is inherently the labor value of workers being redistributed to the wealthy owners. But there's also an emotional alienation as well, because working for a brand, not working under your own name, removes you from the satisfaction of being good at your job and being recognized as such in the community. Instead, you are effectively treated as a member of a brand, and all the person's feelings towards that brand will be directed towards you, which is something that puts you and your own identity at work and kind of removes your identity from that equation, giving you little control over your own image at work. Of course, this feels unsettling, and it's unsettling to our customers as well. You walk into a store, you're instantly greeted by someone somewhere you can't see. And unless you know this person personally, it's easy to think of them as a cog in the machine, more so than an individual independent of it. It's easy to tell yourself that they have to say hello to everyone who comes in and that greeting wasn't really special. There's no natural satisfaction from improving someone's life through a job well done, and alienation stands in the middle of that, acting as a firewall between the person doing the service and the person benefiting from it, which disconnects both of them from the human core of the interaction and the satisfaction that it can bring for both parties. It disconnects us from a sense of gratitude. Instead, we see a job well done as exactly what we would expect from a brand, instead of a commentary on the individual's ability to perform a task well. You get no credit when you do a good job, and when someone else at the company does a bad job, you can be blamed for it by the customer because you were seen as an instrument of the brand that made the mistake and not an individual worker. Because of this, consumers, often older and less class aware, tend to take out a lot of their frustration on people who are just simply not responsible for the things that the customer is upset about. And for a person who feels utterly in no control of their environment and their ability to do a good enough job that such a thing won't happen. Constantly going throughout your daily work life with this threat of hostility directed towards the company being channeled through you as a representative of it is a terrifying reality, and companies increasingly make decisions that make their overall customer service infrastructures weaker and less responsive. Thus, more and more anger will be directed at those entry-level participants in the economy who have no control over the systems that they are being yelled at about. This is supposed to be replaced by the satisfaction and fulfillment that can be found in owning things. And this is a really hollow trade-off, even for the wealthiest of us, because there is very little satisfaction simply from owning things. And because it never feels like you did that. You bought the thing which could do that, and that's good on you, I guess. But in the end, the accomplishment is the piece of technology that you're holding, not you, and the way that you use it. People search for meaning in a lot of ways through consumer hobbies as well. And a lot of the aspects of our life that should be independent of the consumer system, which could bring us great satisfaction, have been commoditized. Which brings me to the topic for this video: personal fitness. This is something that I believe in quite a bit, and I think we are largely alienated from our bodies and minds by the capitalist lifestyles that we live. Think about it. Operating a body and a mind are both demanding tasks that overwhelm even the best of us at times. And the one thing that we typically don't have either the brain or body power to do after a long day of work is maintain our mental hygiene or physical fitness. We have been sold on the ways that products and services can solve these problems for us for a fee. But the truth is that these are just ways to market solutions that have already existed and that you could do on your own without giving anyone your money. For example, I'm a firm believer that the only thing that would stop most people from being able to do pretty much everything that you would have to do to get in pretty good physical shape is to, say, get a yoga mat and a 20-pound kettlebell, and the only thing that would really hold those people back is the knowledge of how to use them to achieve that goal. In terms of functional strength and functional fitness, that's about all you need other than your own body weight, and the things that I would eventually add would only be to specialize and improve certain exercises so that I could do them more efficiently. But effectively, you could work any part of your body with this setup if you had the knowledge. And another thing that this setup emphasizes is the part that stretching plays in physical fitness. Through holding a pose that stretches a particular muscle or tendon, say for 20 to 30 seconds, you actually encourage that muscle to grow longer pretty directly. It's actually really fascinating the way our body works and responds in this way, and how flexibility will also add to your functional strength and balance. And to me, even just that 20 pounds of resistance from the kettlebell, in addition to your own body weight for certain exercises, as a kettlebell, you can do a lot of strength and resistance training using a variety of exercises. And the thing that I think is best about this approach, that in order to progress, one must become less alienated from their own body. There's a strange feeling that people often report after smoking a bit too much weed, and that is that they become aware of their heartbeat. And having never been aware of their heartbeat outside of when it was beating particularly hard, this freaks them out, thinking that something is wrong, instead of realizing that this is simply an awareness that we always have access to. But we usually don't spare the mental bandwidth for this because we have too many other things occupying our conscious mind to ever really focus on our own heartbeat. But the reality is that if we really focused in, we could feel the status of every part of our body, and through having cultivated this level of awareness of your body, through exercise and through stretching, you will become more aware of what it needs and what it lacks, and how to bridge that gap. And while I think that a certain amount of education and inspiration from existing forms is definitely helpful here, I really think that the most important part is to experiment with your body in safe ways to find out what works for you. We are each individuals, and we have all developed differently in response to our lives. Developing a body consciousness allows us to better understand how to take care of ourselves, even outside of these moments of exercise. But one of the problems that we're going to be discussing in this video series is the commoditization of exercise and how it begins to strip away this body consciousness by default. And I don't really hate the fitness industry for this, and I do believe that personal fitness is important no matter how you have to come about it. I think there are some benefits to gyms, especially for people who are just getting into physical fitness. But I do think if your beginning and end of what it means to become physically fit involves going to a gym, then you have allowed capitalism to commodify the experience of learning to interact with your own body. I know you may not realize why that is harmful now, but I hope that you will by the end of this series. And if it helps, I used to work at two of the largest low-cost gyms in the world, and I know a lot about the ways that they operate. And as you would probably expect coming into this, it's not great for the workers, even though it's not exactly what you might imagine either. This was a job that, though the conditions were poor, I did genuinely enjoy it for most of the time that I did it. And a big part of that to me was becoming involved in our individual customers' lives and really trying to understand each individual and why they kept coming back to me for advice. I got to be a part in their journey to a healthier relationship with their body, and seeing those people come back even if they didn't thank me for encouraging them all along the way to that personal journey, it made me feel incredible fulfillment. That's not to say that the job wasn't alienating in other ways, but it was a job where I didn't always feel alienated in the way that a lot of other jobs can be. Even though it still has a lot of the same problems, especially the ones that Marx had already started pointing out well over 100 years before many of these gym chains would emerge.